Thank you to Kioxia for sponsoring this video. Stick around until the end to learn more about this little guy. It's that time of year, new iPhone time of year, iPhone 14 time of year. You have seen all of the leaks and rumors about this upcoming phone. There are specifications, CAD drawings, case companies, and so forth that have access to the schematics, have access to the dimensions, and in many cases can build one-to-one replicas of the upcoming phone before the upcoming phone even exists. That is the surprise that I have in this package here today. This is a super high quality, very expensive mock-up of the upcoming iPhone 14, giving us our best look yet at a physical representation, a thing you can actually hold that will eventually be the phone of Apple's future, coming up very shortly. I have the lineup of iPhone 13s. Of course, this year is going to drop one model. All signs are indicating that the mini model will go away completely. I know some people are going to be upset about that. One advantage is you're likely going to have the option to go with a standard model iPhone 14, but larger. In order to go big, you don't have to go Pro. I don't know what this will mean exactly for pricing. The other thing we're expecting to see on this model is this new front-facing camera setup, which is not quite a notch. This is the render we've been seeing with what they're calling the pill and punch hole. It's going to make the display seem bigger, like a bigger screen to body ratio, plus apparently the bezel is going to shrink, just a better ratio. The other thing with these front-facing cameras, they're supposed to be improved with a larger aperture. You're going to get more light coming in on those front-facing cameras. Now, I have picked up a very high-end digital caliper from Japan. All right, maybe you heard of it before, because I want accurate measurements. When I get this thing out of the box, we're gonna find out the exact measurements. And this is the big dog status as far as the iPhones are concerned. It is the 14 Pro Max. The main comparison is against this one right here, the 13 Pro Max. Now keep in mind, it's a non-working model. Things could change, but companies are so confident, case companies, accessory manufacturers are so confident in their CAD drawings that they've gone through the effort of building things to this degree of sophistication. Let's go ahead and open up this box straight from China. Now this thing was delayed. They wanted to send it to me. I was like, okay, I'll take a look. Of course, I'm interested in seeing what this is gonna look and feel like. How similar is it to the previous gen? It's definitely not a massive overhaul. Now the other thing I should mention, having looked at all the leaks and rumors, is the fact that the non-Pro model is still supposed to have the notch. So that's gonna be one differentiator between the two if you wanna glance at it and tell right away. Presumably you'll have slimmer bezels, and then you have this pill/punch hole setup as opposed to the full-on notch that the non-Pro model should have. Bye-bye again to the Mini. So we have this little velour style bag protected by this air package here. Now in the past, when I've seen these things, I've been amazed. Like I can tell from the weight already, this is not one of these cheap dummy units or clones, but instead it's really made to a premium specification. You can see the back here is covered in red tape to block out, I'm guessing, the logo or to protect the back. Okay, there's more where that came from. Ooh, this looks like it's gonna be the darker color, your kind of midnight or whatever they're going to call it. From the back, it looks a lot like the current generation Pro Max, if not identical. Now the camera units grew. They got even bigger. I know that's a surprise to you. We will pull the calipers out because we do need to get to the bottom of it. As of right now, the height looks almost identical. They're so similar in weight. It really feels like an actual functional phone. I'm not seeing antenna bands on this unit. Power switch actually looks a little bit wider. It looks a little fatter. What's crazy about it is it looks like the metal pins are in there. Wow, that is with the screws inside. This thing, watch, it's functional, it works. I booted up, legit iPhone 14. That is amazing. They even have Apple's specialized screws down there. Still the lightning port, no fully wireless iPhone for iPhone 14. Not that anybody expected it. The dreams about a USB-C iPhone, you're still dreaming. It's not happening. It's still a dream, all right? Your dreams about a potential USB-C iPhone, not happening. Not today, not with the iPhone 14. On this side of the device, where the SIM card tray is, that's not actually removable on this non-working model. Of course, your hold switch is still there, and kind of like the power button, these volume buttons are ever so slightly different in dimension. They're just a little bit fatter. Thickness is concerned, it looks almost identical. If anything, the 14 model here might be a touch fatter, but we'll pull out the digital calipers for that. Up here, we do not have our typical notch. This is gonna be the hole punch plus pill setup that has been rumored, and now it's been built into this non-functioning, non-retail model of the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Okay, now let's get to the important part of this video. My understanding is that this company is well known in the caliper space. Made in Japan, by the way. Look at that, made in Japan. Design on the package, couple of stripes. All right. Nice case so that this thing can hang around and be protected in the Unbox Therapy Studio. This could be useful in the future. Ooh, certificate of inspection. This is no joke right here. My goodness. No wonder these things are so expensive. Look at all the extra. Will, that's a battery. That is a watch-style battery in the package. You didn't believe me. Is Will over there? You didn't believe me, sir. This is incredible stuff. Mitu Toyo. And this is coolant-proof IP67. So even for harsh environments, this thing's gonna stand up to whatever you throw at it. Normally, you would just use a coin for something like this. They give you an actual key for this purpose. So much better than a coin. There's also a selector switch for inches versus millimeters, considering how tiny the things we'll be measuring here and the fact that it comes from Japan. Metric. No, I'm just saying. Tighten it up to the frame. So 77.61 compared to 78.13. Subtle. Very subtle. Ever so slightly, little bit wider. Remember though, we were talking about shrinking of the bezels. Ever so slight shrinking of the bezels was the speculation, so that's an interesting finding. So it seemed like the thickness was pretty similar upon me feeling over the edge, but let's go ahead and find out if it's identical. 7.7? 7.7? 7.8? 7.9. Fatter. Battery life? I don't know. Just a model, take it for what it's worth. These CAD drawings that case manufacturers get their hands on tend to be pretty accurate. After all, the point is to go out and make a case in advance of the release of the phone that's gonna fit on it perfectly. But still, take it for what it is. What does this tell us? It tells us that the upcoming iPhone 14 Pro will likely have slimmer bezel, will likely have a hole punch pill style front-facing camera system, will likely be a little bit fatter, hopefully probably to accommodate even better battery life, which is kind of amazing already. And then lastly, the comparison in the camera section here. When you put them side by side like this, you can actually see how much bigger that camera unit is gonna be as a whole, and when you're looking at each individual lens setup. You can also notice that the whole thing dips down quite a bit further and takes up a larger space, at least the square which houses this variety of lenses. We are working with 16.17 millimeters compared to 15.51. It seems like a very small difference, but for a camera unit, especially times 3, it's kind of substantial. I mean, it's already a monster camera unit, but it's even bigger now. Let's look at the entirety of this section. 38.75 millimeters versus 40. So the whole thing's got to grow in order to accommodate this new setup and the potential advantages that come with it. Of course, we don't have full details on the specification for these cameras. In the camera territory, usually bigger is better, and we would expect to see improvements in this department as well. Either way, it's not a massive overhaul. The design language and overall aesthetic is mostly the same. You'll be able to spot the new phone via the bigger camera unit, slimmer bezel, hole punch / pill style design on the front. But I don't think many people are going to be able to feel the difference in dimension. If you're used to using a current generation Pro Max then this one is gonna feel extremely familiar. So I have a couple of these drawings that I mentioned on my desktop. Essentially the predictions that this particular model unit is built upon. I actually have them for all the different models. And that lineup is gonna look different this time around because you're gonna have 14, 14 Max, 14 Pro, and 14 Pro Max. So let's go ahead and open up these drawings. So the prediction based on these renders is that you're gonna have a device 78.5 millimeters wide by 160.7 millimeters long, 77.6 on width. It actually lines up exactly with this CAD drawing. Well, take that for what it's worth as well. Take that for what it's worth as well. And the height, 160.7 millimeters, the thickness, 8.1. It's the closest thing that we have that we can hold in our hands right now relative to the iPhone 14 Pro Max in this case. These dimensions are so tight and we're talking about such small increments and tolerances. I'm fairly confident that what I'm holding is something very, very close with imperceivable differences from the iPhone 14 Pro Max that will launch very soon. There you have it. If you haven't heard of Kioxia, that's because they used to be called Toshiba Memory. They are the inventor of NAND flash memory all the way back 35 years ago, and they've been manufacturing SSDs and memory for decades. These tiny little guys store photos, music, documents on devices like laptops, smartphones, and cameras. It's crazy to think of how far we've come being able to store all that on these tiny little devices. Decades ago, we'd be talking about 1 or 2 photos on something this size. Now we're talking about 20,000 on an SSD like this BG5. Kioxia also makes SSDs for servers. These two new form factors are the future of SSDs in the data center, called the EDSFF E1.S and the E3.S. These new types of drives will replace your classic M.2 and 2.5-inch drives for years to come, and Kioxia is helping lead the way. It's crazy to think about how far we've come in the technology space, and part of it is thanks to companies like Kioxia that are able to keep innovating. So thanks again to Kioxia for sponsoring this episode. If you guys are interested in any of their storage products, make sure to click the link down in the description.